BetterHelp Online Therapy bought this 30-second ad to remind you, right now, wherever you are, to unclench your jaw, relax your shoulders, take a deep breath in and out. Feels better, right? That's 15 seconds of self-care. Imagine what you could do with more. Visit betterhelp.com/randompod for 10% off your first month of therapy. No pressure, just help. But for now, just relax.
Get the new Samsung Galaxy Z Fold 7 and save £713.
What's it like?
It's ultra sleek and ultra slim.
What about the camera?
It's 200 megapixel.
200 megapixel.
Amazing.
And with unlimited data, all on the UK's best network. It's no wonder tech lovers choose EE.
Introductory offer ends 14th of August. Savings across contract. Eligibility, credit check and terms apply. Credit by EE Limited. Verify at ee.creditk/claims.
Hello and welcome to the Game Football Podcast from The Times, and welcome to the new football season. This is the first in a special series of shows looking ahead to the new Premier League campaign. Over the next 10 days, we'll be speaking to our reporters across the country to focus on all 20 clubs in the league. And yes, we'll be previewing the Championship too. Today we start with a close look at Arsenal, Crystal Palace, Brighton, Tottenham, Brentford and West Ham. And joining me, Tom Clark, we have the senior sports writer and Sunday Times columnist Alison Rudd, the reporter and tactics analyst Hamza Khalik Lunat, and the reporter and transfer expert Carrie Jacob. Team, welcome back. We're here together in a studio, side by side. Alison, it's wonderful, isn't it?
It is lovely.
It's really nice, isn't it? We're all so excited for the new season. Hamza, you buzzing? A bit distracted by the cricket, aren't we?
We are a little bit distracted by the cricket. And when you asked me last week, are you ready to go in the podcast? What did I say? Already?
Yeah, already.
I couldn't believe it that we're back already. The football season is eternal.
It's here. And Gary...
It doesn't stop, does it, Hamza? As you learned from covering a wonderful tournament in the summer.
Exactly.
Yeah. But it was nice. It was very nice to have some time off and then watch the cricket. But now we're back. We're ready for football.
You won the trophy.
I wouldn't go that far.
Hamza's triumph at the
It is 2 wins out of 2.
Two out of 2, yeah.
Well, some things never change. Hamza is clinging to his fountain pen. Jesus.
Yes, that's true. He's ready to make notes, Alison, because this is going to be an in-depth...
Fountain
Maybe you're
pen.
a lucky charm, Hamza,
Fountain
for them.
pen.
Maybe you can go to the World Cup next year on the back of this.
That's a fantastic idea, Gary.
I've just said that in front of the bosses.
Excellent. I see a little bit of teamwork going on, but Hamza is ready and poised with that pen to make loads of notes, because we are going to dive deep into the 6 teams today. And let's get started. Let's get straight into it and start with Arsenal. A massive summer for them. I'm just going to quickly run through their transfer dealings, ins and outs. They've signed Kepa Arrizabalaga, Martin Zubamendi, Christian Norgard, Noni Madueke, Christian Mosquera, and the big one, they finally got it over the line, Victor Gyökeres from Sporting Lisbon, that striker that the fans had been crying out for. Kieran Tierney, Nuno Tavares, Jorginho, Marquinhos, Thomas Partey and Tomiyasu have left. So Gary, start with you. Lots of business done already for Arsenal. Just give us a quick sense for their fans. Do you expect many more ins or outs?
I think there still is a strong possibility, and a still left winger if Trossard goes. And I think anyone who's watched them in pre-season can see they need a left winger. They want someone who's a little bit more direct on there. And Eze would probably give them something a little bit more unpredictable in midfield. The one caveat to this is they've played Downman in pre-season, and he's a kid, but he's looked fantastic.
Yeah.
So obviously he can't play. He's 15 years old. Which and Arsenal clearly want to keep him, because in time, obviously, other clubs could actually sign him until he can sign a proper contract. So he'll get minutes this season. He's cuts in off the right. He can go both ways, and he's just looked like a complete breath of fresh air. So it'll be interesting to see whether actually they go... I think they will go ahead with the Eze deal, because you can't expect a 15-year-old to kind of carry you, and you can't expect about a minute. So I think... but they obviously need to get some outs out the door.
Who else would be looking at getting rid of?
Out the door, so Kivior to get out, still Lokonga, they've still got Zinchenko. You know, there's a lot of clubs in the Premier League who've got people they want to get out the door. It's a kind of old age story. It's like people on good wages who don't want to go anywhere, and that's...
Do you expect them to get those outs to get done in some way, or do they have to happen before Eze can happen?
I think Trossard will have to be out the door or on the way out the door before they sign a left wing. I think Eze's a slightly different one. I think that could happen regardless. But certainly the left winger. And I wouldn't be surprised if they go back in for Rodrigo from Real Madrid.
Wow,
but
really?
only on loan at the end of the window, because the argument will be he's not going to play at Real Madrid. We can take you on loan for a season. We can all feel each other up, see how we all kind of get on, and then if we kind of get on, then we can go from there.
Interesting. Well, that
will be my guess.
Huge.
But it's only a guess.
It's all right. Don't worry, Gary. Arsenal fans will not hold you to it. Don't worry.
I'm not available on Twitter.
He is, listeners. He really is.
He
he's
just
fantastic.
never checks it.
Give him a follow.
But the most. See, I think the most fascinating signing of all the people you've listed, and he did that off the top of his head. People,
he did.
It's very good. Is I think we need to talk about Noni Madueke. I have no idea why they've signed him.
Really?
And if you look at how might Arsenal line up first few games of the season, most people would put him on the left. Why would you if you've got Saka on the right? But he doesn't play on the left, and when he has played on the left, he's been rubbish.
But he's quick and direct. See, I disagree.
Yes, he doesn't look quick and direct on the left.
A lot of my friends who are Arsenal fans completely agree with you. Why are we signing Madueke? Why are we signing him? And I remember a show at the end of last season where there was a few of us and we were talking about how Arteta likes these forwards, doesn't he, Gary? He likes versatile forwards.
He's not versatile.
I think he is quite versatile, and also
what evidence have you got for that, Tom?
To the point about Saka, just very quickly, I'll come back to answer that question in a sec. The problem with Saka was that they rely on him all the time. Hamza did lots of excellent analysis how teams double up on him, and it's always on Saka. If you have Madueke, you can rotate them. He doesn't have to play every game. I also think Madueke running in behind, Arsenal don't have many players who actually run in behind defences with pace, with direct running, and I think he could do that. I just think he could be a really good option. I don't think he's going to shock everyone and score 15, 20 goals or anything, but I think he could be a really important
he's a
squad
reasonable
player.
I agree, he's a reasonable backup to Saka, who when injured Arsenal have struggled, and it's good to know you've got someone that can do similar stuff. But I mean, that's not a grand plan,
but he's
is
also
it?
quite young to say this is exactly
someone
what he
we've got
does.
for when Saka's injured.
This is exactly what he does, just on its own. I agree with you. It's a fascinating signing. I am just slightly
are
more
we not
in
back
the camp.
at we had this discussion a lot. We have had it over the Arteta managerial era at Arsenal. Is he somebody who thinks I can get more out of that player than the managers he's had so far?
I think there might be a bit of that in it as well.
And Madueke has been, at Chelsea, one of those players who does knock on the door of the manager a lot, whoever it is, and says, I should be playing more. I should be playing more. Why aren't you playing me more? And they've sort of fudged a bit about attitude and needing to show it regularly. And he's an up and down sort of player, and managers don't like that. They like to know that they're going to see something in training and they're going to see something in matches, and it's not going to vary wildly from match to match. So you would see Madueke looking like the best player in the universe for 20 minutes, and then for the next 2 months you wouldn't really notice him very much. And managers hate that, and so Arteta's thinking, I've seen how brilliant he can be, albeit on the right and not the left. I've got the skill as a manager to make him consistent, but I think it's a bit of a risk, and I predict now I don't think he'll be a huge success at Arsenal.
I like Madueke. I think he's a good player. I liked him when I first came across him a few years ago. I thought he offered quite a bit to Chelsea in terms of directness. The thing is, and he's a good player, and he's definitely top 4 quality. The thing is, when Arsenal signed him, I get a sense that they are bringing in a player in a similar situation to the way that they brought in Marino, a really good player, but one that doesn't necessarily move the squad forwards, or when I say forwards, I mean literally up the table. I think when you're in this position where you finish second, or let's say you finish 4th, you want to sign a player or sign players that literally move you up the table. And I'm not quite sure Madueke, he'll be able to give that impact to Arsenal. If he's a rotation option, that's great, but you shouldn't usually sign players for the sake of them being rotation options. The idea is actually that you bring in a better player, and then the existing player that you have in your team then becomes a rotation option, and that's how you sort of refresh and update the squad.
I think they needed elite players, like Hamza says, to kind of raise into the next level. But I think they've looked at it and thought, we had so many injuries last season. We need our bench at times was too thin. And we've only got a set budget. We need to have a much deeper bench. And I think if you look at all of the players they've sort of signed, they're all similar value. And
Madueke doesn't like being a bench player.
then he'll have to deal with that, because that's kind of par for the course that was going there. That's kind of you're not going to be a kind of first choice. I think that's I think he wants probably 16 or 17 players. I don't necessarily think it's right, but of a similar ability that can kind of change positions, change players, change this, change that. So then we look at it, it's easy. He had 14 draws last season. He probably thinks, well, if I could have turned those into X number of wins through Gorkes or through someone else to kind of convert some chances, I would be a lot closer to Liverpool and a lot more pressure on it. Now, I think there are a lot of Arsenal fans like you, Alison, who would say all the signings were a bit, we were expecting a little bit more. We were talking to Nico Williams, who's meant to be this amazing left winger. We don't get him. We don't get this one. We don't get one. And so I think the Arsenal fans are going to be a little bit, I think they're holding on to judgment for now.
Do we think that sorry, Gary.
But I was going to say, but what really I think will kind of be the crux of all this is that if Isak does move and Sesko moves here, Arsenal have got it all played out in front of their eyes, because if Isak shines at Liverpool and Sesko shines somewhere else, everyone's going to go, you've made a mistake.
You've gone for the wrong player.
You've gone for the wrong players.
Which is based on the idea that Victor Gyökeres is not going to be the player that they want him to be.
The interesting thing about Gyökeres is that at the start of the window, they were like, he's too old. He's in the sense that he's too expensive for the price of his age. And
27, isn't he?
27. Yeah. But then clearly Leipzig weren't moving the dial on Sesko, so it was. So like
you're saying you think that at the start of the window they preferred Sesko?
It was Sesko. I think for the fact he's younger and he's got more options to go. But I think ultimately they couldn't move the price with Leipzig. So if you look at all the Arsenal prices, they're all quite similar. And I think they've kind of taken the decision that the wages and fees, the combined number of that, has got to be in a certain band.
Yeah.
And Noni wasn't an expensive player on wages by all accounts. So I think they've taken that decision. And, I think Alison and Hamza are right. Is it going to beat PSG in a semi-final? Probably no.
You don't think any... So not even Gyökeres?
I don't think there's one player they signed who's going to get into the starting 11, actually.
You don't think Gyökeres starts ahead of Havertz? Wow.
Because he loves Havertz. He actually loves Havertz.
Hamza, Alison? I mean, even as I often bring this point in about, the PR side of football. It's a hell of a move to sign Victor Gyökeres and have his, the celebration and everything and this long, protracted, drawn-out thing and give him Thierry Henry's shirt and then go, you're Kai Havertz backup, isn't it? I mean, I'm not saying you're wrong, Gary. But it would be very Mikel Arteta, but that's a bold move for a bloke desperate for a trophy.
Havertz might have to play a slightly different position, because you think he really loves Havertz in the team.
It's just fascinating, isn't it? I mean, that's Alison.
Well, he'll get a chance, but I can equally see him disappearing from view. It probably depends on what sort of season Havertz has, to be honest, to begin with, because I think Havertz. There is an absolute star inside Havertz.
Really?
And we haven't quite seen it yet.
So hang on a minute. I honestly thought we were going to come on and talk about Victor Gyökeres, and now we're saying he's a backup striker signed for nearly 60 million quid. This is an outrageously good hot take to start the season previews with. The rest of the reporting staff are going to do well to beat that one. So I'll go through them again. So Kepa, backup goalkeeper, signed. Zubimendi, I mean,
no, he's
a starter,
he's
right?
A starter.
They have signed one starter.
He's probably the only starter, yeah.
Because that's the point Hamza just made a minute ago, wasn't it, about Madueke?
He's Spain's holding player. Yeah. He's
so they've signed at least one definite starter, and then Norgard from Brentford, squad player for those moments when they're missing midfielders.
That's the key signing, she said, putting her I love Brentford hat on.
We'll come to Brentford in a bit, Alison.
I mean, Arsenal have signed him. Why have they signed him? I mean, he is a proper leader. And no matter what's going on, as Gary has pointed out, there have been a lot of matches that Arsenal have drawn, and if they'd won them, the title race would have been different, a different sort of race maybe. There's been a lot of matches where you think a bit more character, a bit more good sense on the pitch, getting those rhythms right at the right moment. They've just sort of fallen short. I do think Norgard has that captaincy and ability to rally the troops and just be what is needed, whether that is to make them fly forward or to be more defensive. He's a great under the radar signing, I think.
I wouldn't have signed Norgard. At no point last season was I watching Arsenal
finish, Alison,
in a match where they were, let's say, losing or drawing and going, you know what they needed right now? Christian Norgard. I like him. He's a good player, but as in
not even to close a game out.
No, I think this is going to be a theme for all teams. When you think about spending your money it's far better to save your money and go for the player you really want than spending some or a sizable amount on someone that you're not too sure on just for the sake of filling a gap. The upside of filling a gap is negligible. The upside of getting who you want is so much more. I mean, you'll come on to other clubs who have gone after who they want later in the pod series, right? But as in, when you get players you're not really keen on and you spend, and Norgard isn't like this because he wasn't too expensive, but if you spend in that sort of 30 to 50 million pound range, if you do that 2 or 3 times, there's a real cost to that in how you can then operate in the market. And I think Arsenal have done this a few too many times. On Gyökeres, given that they had reservations about him, I wouldn't have gone so firmly in on him because he's really good at what he does. And what he does is breaking behind on transition, counter-attacks, that sort of stuff. When there's loads of open space, he's fantastic. Having watched Arsenal for the past 3 seasons, that's not something they really do anymore. If they change their style, if they tweak it, if they become a bit more attacking, a bit more direct, playing to those spaces a bit more, then that would suit him. I'm not sure we get that sense from Mikel Arteta that he likes that sort of stuff. We'll see. If he does change that, then I think it will work really well. If he doesn't, then I think you're just going to have a good striker just in the wrong sort of team, in my opinion. But yeah, Eze would help a bit.
There were a couple of things against Tottenham which suggested he was going to try and change his style to be a little bit more...
This is a recent friendly where they lost 1-0.
Yeah, like Hamza's talking, to kind of be a bit more direct and a bit more to kind of play into his strengths and to play into what...
Right.
So it will be interesting to see if Mikel does change it, because he has been fairly predictable in the style, now quite a functional team. So that'll be one of the things to kind of look out for.
Very interesting. I mean,
I'm amazed you're dissing the Norgard signing. You're basically taking the soul of a club that has overachieved more than any other club in Premier League history, and you've grabbed it for a very negligible amount of money and plonked it in a team that has sometimes struggled for character.
But transfers like souls.
But do you not?
You can though, can't you?
Do you not think that comes back to that PR point though? That and Hamza touched on it with the Arsenal fans. And as I keep referencing them, you learn from your mates like what they were like. Oh, Norgard. Ooh.
Well, then they're idiots.
All your mates are idiots, Tom. All your mates are idiots,
but I mean, listening to you guys, it's fascinating. I think what Mikel Arteta has done previously as a first-time manager has been wonderful. I do know that he goes into this season under huge pressure.
Yeah.
I was looking at it going, they've made some strong signings here. They've finally got a striker. Listening to Gary talking about them maybe bringing in Eze, I'm like, this is the big one. And I've just listened to you guys talk for 15 minutes and thinking, they're not even going to challenge for the title here. I mean, where are we at here? Are we in like Mikel Arteta under pressure at Christmas type territory, or do we think they're capable of challenging with Liverpool and Manchester City? Alison?
They're capable. Absolutely, they're capable. My gut feeling is they'll just fall short slightly.
Fall short slightly, having been in the race and finished third, or never look like being in it?
No, I think after 8 weeks, we'll think that there'll be someone in this room saying, I think Arsenal are going to win the title. And after 20 weeks, there'll be someone saying, why did I say that?
Interesting. Probably both me and knowing my track record of predictions. Hamza, what do you reckon about what we've said and where we're heading with Arsenal into this season?
There should be roundabout types of challenges, I think.
You don't necessarily... I'm not getting the sense from anyone that they think...
No, I think...
Last season finished and it was like, right, next season Arteta has to win something.
I think he's got the big enough
spend.
squad now, you would think some of those 14 draws will be turned into wins. But if you're playing them against PSG or Liverpool, and if Liverpool get Isak, you won't be saying... I don't think Liverpool are going to be looking at the Arsenal signings and going, we're really worried about those signings. And that really is going to be a difference, I think, in the really crunch games. But maybe Arteta thinks those other 14, if I turn 7 or 8 of them into wins, I get on Liverpool's tail. But
I think there's probably 2 things. It's the style thing and the other thing that I forgot to write down, and I will remember in a second. They just need to tweak that aspect of their game to become a bit more attacking, to get a bit more output from the attacking guys. Yeah. The other thing is fitness. Sorry, that's The key thing I think for Arsenal actually this season is to make sure that their players are fit, and that means not overplaying them. If Mikel Arteta can keep his squad fit and not overplay his players and not lead to the point where some are getting injured. So, last season they did have a few which were genuinely unlucky injuries, but a lot were soft tissue injuries, and you really shouldn't be having soft tissue injuries, especially in training, because you're able to control the workload in those sessions. So just being able to rotate a bit more. Well, he has the ability to rotate more. Yep. If he does that, then they should definitely improve just by having the players available and them hitting their level. But yeah, I think that's a key question for him. Can he resist playing Saka all the time, even now that he's got Madueke?
I agree with that. I think he hasn't shown much willingness to rotate over his past few years. He obviously trusts a certain amount of players, and then beyond that he goes, I'm not really sure about them. I'm not sure I want to play them in that game. Now he's got perhaps a slightly deeper squad. So is he actually going to rotate? Is he going to drop? Is he going to take Saka off for 60 minutes? Is he going to kind of not play him against Burnley away, for example? Is it? We don't know, and it's down to him.
Yeah.
You feel like sometimes, and Mikel always goes back to that quote, well, Messi played 80 games. It's like, well, but you've
that's
had
Messi.
That's Messi, and Bakayo's got lots of problems with his legs. So perhaps you need to play him less.
Interesting. Only one team in, guys, and we are already dishing out the fascinating analysis and probably infuriating a few fans out there as well. But please do get in touch with me with your thoughts, tom.clark@thetimes.co.uk. We're talking about Arsenal needing to win a trophy. One team that did win a trophy. There's going to be some ropey links in here, guys, I'm not going to lie. Crystal Palace. Crystal Palace, winners of the FA Cup last season in fantastic fashion. Gary, start again. Going to whiz through their transfer dealings, or lack of, as the case may be. Walter Benitez in from a free from PSV Eindhoven. Borna Souza from Ajax for $2 million. Joel Ward has been released. Jeffrey Schlupp, Luke Plange, Joe Whitworth, David Ozzo and Rob Holding as well. Not a massively exciting summer for a Crystal Palace fan. And you've already teed up the idea that they might be losing Eberechi Eze.
Yeah.
Should they be worried?
It's part for the course of what they've done under the current owners in terms of leaving things late. But I think what's really interesting is that Glasner's already complained via the Austrian press, and I think that's quite telling. He complained last autumn about why were we so slow to make transfers, and that's why I've had a slow start to the season. And he ended the season saying we need to be better, and Steve Parish is saying, yeah, we need to be better than what we did. And actually they're not. So they might say, well, it's all down to Cass, and if we get in Europa League we'll have more money and we can do more things. But not only are they not signing players, they've also got in the background the fact that Guehi's got a year left and Eze's got this. Demand from Arsenal want him. They've probably parked the water in one. Mateta perhaps still been eyeing, look and see it as a possible thing. So they actually do need to get on. I think above all, they need to kind of satisfy Glasner, really, because he's proved to be a really good manager and he wants his players. He wants some centre-backs. He wants another attacking player. And I think, and for them, obviously, in the short term, the Cass judgment, which is later, to remind me, later in the week, they go to Cass and try and argue they should be in Europa League, not in the Conference League. That decision will be made by next Monday. Right. So perhaps we'd expect Palace from then to kind of move and actually sort of, okay, well, we know where we are. We'll kind of go a bit. But obviously, I think Liverpool and Newcastle are still looking at Guehi as a possible, so they would need something for that.
But that has been as well, just on the players, a bit of the kind of model of they've had these excellent players that they give a chance to, they build them up, they give them Premier League experience, and then they cash in kind of one at a time, don't they? Elise was a good example of that. So the idea of them losing one of those players, but are you suggesting they could all go? I
think the interesting thing is that at least they had the clause, so there was a very easy way for him to get out. Right. Eze's also got a clause, so there is a way to get him out. But they dug in when it was Zaha, and they really dug in, and actually in the end he never got his move. So if you're Eze now, or you're any young player like Walter, you go, well, I'll come here, like I go to Brighton, if there's an opportunity for me to be sold on somewhere else, and you're actually going to do that. But if Palace are going to always put their foot down and say, sorry, we're not going to sell you, then you change the way a player would kind of come to you as a club and think about you as a club. And also they might just say, well, sorry, we want a release clause in, otherwise we've got no way of definitely getting out. And also Leeds had that, so it'd be interesting to see what happens with Eze, because that will affect, I think, what happens going forward with players who are looking to go to Palace.
They are the most dispiriting current right now. I mean, if the judgment goes their way and they are in the Europa League, we'll all feel a bit more excited for them. But right now, the contrast between the mood after winning the FA Cup, the things Parish was saying, the things Glasner was saying, the things the players were saying, you felt, oh my goodness, they're going to be in Europe, they're going to back Glasner, they're going to make signings, this is so exciting, they'll hold on to all their stars, Wharton, Eze, so on. It's going to be amazing. And then slowly there's been this sort of, it's like watching a balloon slowly deflate, literally a balloon at the party, shh, and it's just become negativity. And they do have a get out, because I mean, you can imagine behind the scenes how angry they are that so much is up in the air, and it's very hard to. They didn't, I'm sure even lawyers practiced in European football couldn't predict which way it's going to go, and it could. We sitting here now don't know which way it's going to go.
Yeah.
Because there's precedent and there's precedent for both sides. So,
but there is this this is the slight contrarian's view, and I'm very upset about them not getting in the Europa League and the slight hypocrisy of it. They might still, but you're saying, they're in Europe. They will still be in Europe. They will still be in Europe in a competition that a man of Oliver Glasner's standing might look at with a good squad and go, we can win this, guys. We could win a second trophy. But
it's only worth it if you win it, and it's so debilitating on your Premier League campaign. Chelsea did it because they had two complete separate squads. Crystal Palace really don't have it.
West Ham did it. West Ham did it with a good squad, with a couple of very excellent players. If they keep some of them, they can win the Conference League. It might. I agree with you about the analogy about the burst balloon at a party, but they can have another party again at the end of the season if they get it right.
Yeah, but Glasner has won the Europa League. It's a step down for him if he's having to juggle with no signings in the Conference League. It doesn't have the same cachet.
What do you think about him and his standing, Alison? Obviously, having interviewed him before that Cup triumph and watching him and watching his team, does he look like Gary's talking about players they might lose? Obviously, he's
got 1 year left, Glasner, on his contract, and I think he's deliberately allowed that to happen because he's basically. I mean, maybe it's not so hidden a message, but he seems to me the message seems to be, I'll be loyal to you if you back up what you tell me you're going to give me by actually doing some business. And so I think they're going to have to be very busy and imaginative in the final weeks of the transfer window for him to think, this is a club I'm going to plan long term for.
Crikey. I mean, the Crystal Palace fans are very sorry for you having to listen to this, but I'm sure it probably echoes a lot of your own thoughts. I mean, if you were looking at this with the players that they've got, Wharton, Mateta, Eze, Mark Gay, and then the Glasner himself, it doesn't sound like they're going to keep all of them. Who are the most important people for them to keep hold of for this season? Out of that collection of players, and
Gay here would be difficult for them to keep unless they just decide whatever's offered on the table is not enough. Is not enough, and we'll let him ride out the last year of his contract or go in January. Eze is probably the one they'd really want to keep, but I think it all goes back to then, are you sending a certain sign about your club? Now, you might argue it's that you're sending a sign, we don't sell our best players, but then the counter is like, well, if you're a young player, it's like, why do I go there then? And this is probably Eze's last chance. If we're, last time it felt like it's probably his last chance. He's had a brilliant season. Wharton, I believe, is staying because he obviously had the injury and he wants to kind of, and he's very important.
But Mateta as well is hugely important.
Hugely important. I don't really see there's a market maybe for Mateta at the moment. I think a few months ago, he was probably hoping there was, but I'm not sure where the market is for him. He's not a young player. But you're right, he was hugely important. Sarr was hugely important in the way they played as well.
Yeah, he was brilliant.
A
tricky one.
I think they've got a really important few weeks ahead, Crystal Palace. And I think Alice is right. I think if you're Glasner, you're saying, well, I'll be loyal for the next few months. Let's see where we are, but I'm hardly going to sign anything. I'm going to see where we are over the next few months. After that, I'll just play it out because there'll be plenty of teams who want him next summer.
Oh, yeah.
Hamza, thoughts listening to the guys and the points there? Would you be worried if you're a Palace fan?
Yeah, I think the biggest issue is the sporting director problem. Obviously, Dougie Friedman left, and that's quite disruptive. Ideally, when you think about transfers,
where did he go, Hamza?
He went to Saudi Arabia.
Exactly. Just thought I'd point that out.
But with Palace, the issue, well, with clubs, when you have a signing, usually you want to sort of do a little bit of background, maybe a year out, maybe even 2 years out. You're thinking about this player might be suitable for us, and then around 6 months before, you're going to re-engage with the player, the club, the people around them. Just make sure that you've got everything in order. But when you don't have a sporting director who can't sort of think long term and think about the next 5 years and how you're going to get your players in and which players you're going to monetize over that time in order to buy further players down the line, it makes it really, really difficult. So I think having some sort of permanent resolution there is actually more important than the individual futures of certain players.
This could have been the rebirth of Palace.
It sounds like the complete opposite.
This could have been the moment.
I mean, it sounds like I've got
positive about them.
Got to ask the question about relegation. Just yes or no?
Oh, no.
Palace, no.
There you go, Palace fans. There you go. It's a quick no to end on that. I suppose a positive of sorts. Let's finish part one of this show with a look at Brighton. I'm going to start outs and ins because I think that's the better way round to do it, given some of the players that they've left. They're very good at selling players, aren't they, Brighton? God love them. João Pedro on his way out, Simon Adingra, Valentin Barco, Odilego Ofaya, James Beadle, Yon Du Yong, Evan Ferguson, Purvis Estupian, Kjell Sherpen, Carl Rushworth and Aaron Cashin have all gone out, either on loan or on permanent deals. And income, here's the list of players that
Francis Ford Coppola.
Income, a list of players who you've not heard of, but by Christmas they'll all be in your fantasy teams and we'll all be talking about how great they are, and they might be on their way to Chelsea. Tom Watson, we've got Shara Costulas, Diego Copella, Olivier Boscala and Maxime de Cooper.
Pronounce that better.
Oh, go on, which one?
Coppola, Francis Ford Coppola.
Francis Ford Coppola, yeah. Not quite exactly that. I think it's Diego Coppola. But anyway, we'll come back to him in a minute. Gary, more business expected, or do we
I think they still want a couple of defenders and another attacker.
They can't be selling anyone else, surely.
No, I don't think so. But they're looking for a couple of defenders and another attacker. Costello, probably pronounced that completely incorrectly.
Looks good to me.
Looks very good, yeah. And
where does he play?
He's a forward. He's for Olympiacos, and
so will he be the João Pedro replacement?
He's only a kid, yeah.
Right.
And he's only a kid. But from what I gather, he's a really exceptional player. I mean, the interesting thing is the fact that Tony Bloom's got this wonderful relationship with Chelsea, who just keep giving him money. You know, whether it's Potter or whether it's the backroom staff or whether it's some players, it's fantastic,
but
isn't
João
it?
Pedro is a hell of a loss, isn't he? I mean, I think when we talk about Chelsea in a few shows' time, I think he's a great signing, but it's a big loss for Brighton.
Well, no, I would say
they've kept Danny Welbeck, so all is fine.
No, well, a bit, but also, step forward, Mr. Ruta, who I think, if you're talking fantasy football, I think he's down as a midfielder.
Really?
And it's like literally you can see the pitch opening up for him. The goals are going to be his, and he just started to play as a centre forward, hadn't he, Gary? Hadn't he, Hamza? I think. Just saying.
So you wouldn't be worried as it we've
No. You
think?
No. I think it was getting clogged up. I think they're looking a bit sharper in terms of where they might be shape wise, where players fit in. Though I didn't do an awful lot of Brighton matches, but the ones I did, I found them slightly confusing because they seem to have too many slots to fill, and the changes made were like, oh, shouldn't he have started him? Why is he? And it was all a bit like almost like too much going on. I think it's good to have a bit of take a scythe to the wheat field and then work out who you've got existing at the club who might shine better for a bit of a cull. And I do think Ruta might be one of those.
But what do we think? Where do Brighton go? Because they've had so many successful seasons, but in terms of finishes, going back from last season, 8th, 11th, 6th, 9th, sorry, then 16th, near the bottom half of the table while they're establishing themselves. But that's 4 very good Premier League season finishes.
All I'm saying is when people look at who's left, they might think, losing a few stars. But actually, I think it looks like good business to me.
And history there suggests that
they know what they're doing.
They know what they're doing. Yeah. And he's always, the thing about Tony is that he's always got the names ready in his drawer, isn't he? He knows he's 2 steps ahead of the game already. So I think, and also, when they signed Pedro, they knew he was going to be sold. I think that was and he obviously was quite keen to move on by all accounts and around the club. So I think they prepare for these things really well.
Any pressure for Hurtzler?
I feel like with Forest in the Europa League and other teams, maybe, and Palace in Europa League, there's a chance for them to kind of break in top 9, top 8
That's
again.
That's a good point, actually, with all the teams
with the people of Tottenham also got demands of that. But I think there's a good chance for Brighton to actually kind of break in there this year. They won't have the extra demands.
Very.
But Hurtzler, you kind of think, hang on, he was 14 years old and he was made Premier League manager. He'll have learnt so much. I think this might be the season where we see more of him and his personality as a coach, and
they weren't that
he
far
might do,
away last year,
3-4-3 or something.
They weren't that far away. They and Brentford weren't that far away from just breaking in. It was just they had a few, Bournemouth. Yeah. Just in the running, the few they let themselves down.
Yeah.
Could be the season with Brighton to get a trophy. Who knows? There we go. There's a nice prediction to end part 1 on. After the break, we'll be talking Tottenham, Brentford and West Ham. But first, time for a little quiz question. We'll obviously be talking about Tottenham after the break. Departing Tottenham legend Son Heung-min has made the 2nd most appearances for Spurs in the Premier League. Who holds the number 1 spot? Find out after the break.
BetterHelp Online Therapy bought this 30-second ad to remind you, right now, wherever you are, to unclench your jaw. Relax your shoulders. Take a deep breath in and out. Feels better, right? That's 15 seconds of self-care. Imagine what you could do with more. Visit betterhelp.com/randompod for 10% off your first month of therapy. No pressure, just help. But for now, just relax.
School's out for summer. At Tesco Mobile, our deals will help you make the most of it. Get the iPhone 15 featuring Dynamic Island and 6 gigs of data for just $29.99 a month with Club Card prices, saving you £54. And you'll collect Club Card points too. How you choose to spend them is up to you. It pays to be connected. Search Tesco Mobile. Every little helps. End 7th of September. Club Card and 36-month credit agreement required. 18 plus only. Collect 1 point for every £1 spent. Terms at tescomobile.com/terms.
Pay attention. The ferry leaves at 10 a.m. Roads are busy.
Great.
Dad, pack the boot.
Yeah.
Rosie, got your teddy?
Uh-huh.
Honey, how's the car?
Windows clean, car wax
I meant the tyres.
Oh, sorted them at Quick Fit last week.
Brilliant.
Planning the perfect getaway this summer? Make sure your tyres are up for the job. Book today at quickfit.com or your local centre. Quick Fit. Drive away happy every time.
Welcome back to the Game Football Podcast from The Times. I'm Tom Clark and I've got Alison Rudd, Hamza Khalik-Luna and Gary Jacob with me for the first in our series of Premier League previews looking at all 20 clubs in the top flight. We're going to carry on after someone tells me what maybe is, we think, the answer to the quiz question, which I thought was Hugo Lloris, and then everyone else in the room thought wasn't Hugo Lloris. So anyway, not the finest start to the quiz question aspect of the show, but thankfully we can dive straight back in with analysis of the teams. And let's talk about Tottenham. Gary, once again, I'm going to run through those transfer dealings. Kevin Danso in from Lens for £21 million. Luka Vuskovic, Matthias Tell, who obviously was on loan last season, his move been made permanent. Mohamed Kudus and Kota Takai all coming in. Out go Højbjerg, Forster, Reguilon, Whiteman, Veliz, Mikey Moore on loan, and Son Heung-min obviously on his way out too.
Obviously, some of these deals are already in the offing, like Danso and Tell. I don't think Tell pulled out many trees, to be honest, last season, but it sounds
I found that one interesting.
It sounds like there was some sort of obligation in the contract if
30 million
if they won the Champions League. There sounds to be, or if they qualify for the Champions League.
Right. Interesting.
So there sounds to be. The interesting one is Kudus, because he had quite a good first season at West Ham.
I think he's a terrific signing.
And he's very direct, and he can go, but he chucked his toys out a little bit in the second season at West Ham, and I think he was a bit of a pain at times. So can we say that on there?
Yeah. You say it now.
And I think probably they were quite happy to sell him. I think they probably were expecting much more of a profit if he'd had a better second season. So it suited all parties. And he looked really good last week against Arsenal in the pre-season friendly. He gave Skelly a really difficult game, Lewis Skelly. He's got a bit of an edge to him. I think he'll be quite a good player for Frank in the way he plays, and so that's an exciting one. But obviously Maddison's injuries,
that's what I was going to say. And obviously they went for Morgan Gibbs-White.
It didn't happen.
Do we think that and Son leaving? They need another big signing up front, don't they? In the forward area, they
need another attacking player. Yeah, definitely. Maybe not a winger, but definitely a central attacking player. I don't hold me to this. Really, I'd be interested to see where they go to someone like Grealish, just because he's available on a loan. Like, they've been quite cute. We're going for Paulinho. He's played in the Premier League. He ticks a box.
He will be a great signing.
I'm so glad he's back in the Premier League.
What a treat.
I don't get the Paulinho thing.
You don't get
it. You don't get it. Have you not watched him live? You've not watched him live, Hamza? Amazing.
It's just when everyone was like, he's going to be amazing by Munich.
He's amazing.
Well, he does something really well. He wins a ball really well, but that's all he does.
I don't think he'll be really great. I don't think he's Bayern Munich level, but I think he could be a brilliant player in the Premier League for Tottenham.
I think the key is that Bayern Munich, he was signed by Tuchel, not by Kompany, and Kompany clearly wanted a completely different player to play in that position than him. So, but he would be fine for Frank because he's had Norgott. Sorry, Alison.
Yeah.
so he'd be fine. But they need some more attacking players. Yeah, and probably another defender. And I think Frank's going to want some maybe one of his own signings. I would have expected him to have actually signed Norgott had Arsenal not pipped in there with the whole thing.
Don't think they'll nip in and get Wissa? We're going to come on and talk about Brentford shortly.
I think Worcester's pretty much going to Newcastle once Brentford sort their replacement out. Yeah.
Obviously, one of the biggest, most significant signings of Tottenham have made is not on the playing staff.
It's in the history of their history.
In the history of their history.
Yes.
Alison Rudd, I'm still not over it. I can't believe we're not talking about Ange Postecoglou, but I'm going to leave it. This is the final therapy session. We're moving on. Thomas Frank, Tottenham manager, Alison.
Well, aren't they lucky? And to be fair to Spurs fans, they know they are, and they love every word the man utters.
So they're going to win the league, is what you're saying?
Could do, couldn't they?
She loves Thomas Frank so much. She's prepared to say that Tottenham might
he doesn't.
win the league.
He's not. It's on the one hand, the whole thing's quite hilarious. On the one hand, they have signed somebody who's never had to juggle Europe and the league, let alone the Champions League and the Premier League.
He's also never had people shout at him ever, because he's clearly a very good bloke and a very good coach. Exactly. He was a Brentford legend. He's never had the entire Tottenham stadium going, "You don't know what you're doing, mate."
So on that level, it is. You could argue, you could actually write an essay and say this is the most ludicrous appointment in the history of football.
800 words by tomorrow, please.
But having interviewed Thomas Frank a lot and watched him in action a lot and seen his teams play a lot, I do think it's I'm more on the side of it being an inspired masterstroke. And what they've got to do, though, is because his history is that he tends to lose or at least not win his first 8 games. So they need to be patient with him in the short term.
You set himself up there, Alison.
Well, I don't know if they will be patient if he has a bad start, but he might well have a bad start. But long term, if they let him take a deep breath and do what he wants to do and creates the culture, he's so good at creating a culture. It's that balancing act, isn't it, where everyone feels they're part of a journey and they love each other, and there's so much camaraderie, but there's also the hard work, and he has his no bullshit policy. And if he's allowed to put that together, and he probably will be able to, because he's taken half of Brentford coaching staff with him, so it's not like he's on his own. Yeah. He's got his mates with him who will help him create that. And this is where I think you're wrong, Hamza. I think Paulinho, it does actually give a sort of focal point to that. There's that. We're not here to be airy-fairy Spursy. We're here to be a proper team, and we're not going to try and win a certain way. We're going to win, but we're going to do it with integrity. That's what you'll get with Spurs, I think, under Thomas Frank. Lucky them.
With players like Paulinho, I guess the key thing is another example is like Ugarte as well at Manchester United. The key thing is to pair them with someone that can do the other stuff that they can't do. So, as in at Bayern Munich, it didn't quite work because he was just trying to win the ball, and they wanted him to be a normal number 6, an all-round number 6 that would be able to progress the ball forwards. If Spurs can reconfigure the midfield so they have a bit more of a creative player alongside him, I don't think Sarr quite does that, or Bissouma, or Bentancur, so I'm not sure how that's going to work at the moment if he just slots in as a starter.
What do you think of the Kudus signing? Gary,
I think that's a wicked signing. I really like that.
Wicked signing. Yeah. That's a great sign, Tottenham fans, if you're getting a wicked from Hamza.
That was a good signing. And Alison just mentioned the coaching staff. One of the guys was really well regarded at the FA and Brentford when he was there was Justin Cochrane as well. At the FA, they're like, this guy's going to be they already believe that he is top level.
He was going to be Brentford's manager.
Yeah. It's one to keep an eye on, just to see how he develops and what he will learn from managing in the Champions League and a top-tier Premier League team.
It will, as much as we're all backing Thomas Frank and everyone loves Thomas Frank, this is a huge challenge. Like Champions League football.
That's how I started it.
No, but there's no guarantees for me with this. And I'm obviously saying this as much as all the team talks are nice. We need to be aggressive, win your duels, be brave, test yourself. It's not as inspiring as Ange Postecoglou, is it? Let's be honest. Come on.
He's a safe pair of hands. But the interesting thing is that after that, Conte and Mourinho, who were trophy winners, they've gone to Ange's exciting football
and a trophy winner, Gary. Do not forget that. And a trophy winner,
but not really. Okay, he arrived as a trophy winner, but
left as a trophy winner.
Left as a trophy winner. Sorry, Alison. But the question is, what is Frank to them, really? And is he? And I suspect they've looked around and there really wasn't anyone else out there that they perhaps could have. I'm not sure which other manager they could have gone for who would have ticked their boxes. So he's probably a safe pair of hands. I think he's got a lot more ability than perhaps he would have had the licence to at Brentford, because he's got a small squad. He needs to keep in the Premier League. It's completely different now. He's got he's got better players to work with. And I think he was unfairly pigeonholed a bit at Brentford, wasn't he?
Yeah, but the clincher, I think the clincher is Brentford always did incredibly well against the top 6 teams.
Yeah.
Their narrative has been, if only they could beat the teams who sit back and defend against them, they would have easily qualified for Europe. So the fact that if you're watching him as a candidate to be your next manager, and you see how he performs against Liverpool and Arsenal and Man United and so on, and Chelsea, if he can do that with Brentford, he can do that with stars shining for us.
What is obviously, and I'm slightly jokingly pushing the Postecoglou narrative, but they did win a trophy and then still change the manager after admittedly a terrible league season. What is success for Thomas Frank then? Is it about changing the culture at Spurs? Is it about winning a trophy? Is it Champions League qualification? Is it playing good football?
Yeah, but Spurs
playing
still
the
finished.
way?
I know the fans had a great day out, the Europa League final, but they still finished the season a laughing stock, and the owners do not want their club to be a laughing stock. What they want is a team that people respect. When they play Spurs, they're a little bit scared. They no one takes it for granted that they can get points off them, that they look stable, more likely to win than not win, able to handle the Champions League. And this is where it's a bit off having Frank, because he's not got a record of doing this, but they need to be able to look like they can, because Ange Postecoglou was completely unable to juggle Premier League and Europe, even though it wasn't the Champions League. He could not do it, and I'm not being horrible, he said it himself. He said, I cannot cope. Well, sort of. He said this is why we're struggling. So they need to be. I don't think in Thomas Frank's first year they need to win silverware. They need to bring back the sense that Spurs are a big European club.
I think it needs a challenge for the Champions League and the league, don't they? And they need to be in the top 6, 7 places.
What gives you whatever gives you respect?
Challenging for the top 4. I think back to where they were a few years ago, actually challenging for that, and then having some good cup runs. The thing about the Champions League is like, now the top 24 teams qualify, you pretty much have to be pretty bad not to qualify. So you'd expect they would get into the knockout phase, the playoffs at a minimum. What happens after that, who knows? So the juggling perhaps is a bit less when it was a 4-team group and there was more jeopardy. It doesn't seem much. We watched the Champions League last season. How many times were the games you're going, this game's really important?
And
PSG nearly went out before we watched them play. You know?
Yeah.
But then coming back to then, we started talking about the squad and what they've got. Have they got a good enough squad to be challenging for top 4, top 5?
He needs more players.
So we then come back to it, and it
he needs a number.
They're a bit short, aren't they?
Yeah, they are a bit short. Yeah.
So busy couple of weeks ahead. To Hamza,
that there is probably the framing that people should think about when judging performances over a season. The squad depth. I've been thinking about this. Is it the team with the best squad or the best 11 that wins the league? And I think it's usually the best squad. And the squad is usually what determines, more than anything else, more than the manager, where a team finishes. This is obvious, right? But when you think about that and where a team should finish, that means that you are judging on the quality of their squad and where it is relative to other ones and what you think the manager could add. I think Spurs' squad is probably around 7th, 8th best in the league. Actually, I'd take it down a bit, because that's how I saw them last season. They had Son, so maybe around 9th best in the league.
What would be like two positions? I'm not going to ask you for players, but like 2 positions that you're gets them up to 6th, 5th, 4th.
An attacking midfielder. I like the 2 starting centre backs. Are they going to keep Romero?
Well, yeah, that's the other thing. I think Romero's probably there for another year now. Okay. I think that's kind of. I suspect he'll be captain, and I suspect it's like he playing a Champions League, playing a World Cup, and then go next summer when he's got a year left. But yeah.
An attacking midfielder. Morgan Gibbs-White, I was interested. I thought that would have been a really interesting move. I don't know if it would have been super successful. And when I say super successful, I mean he would have got 15 goals and 10 assists.
Yeah.
I was just really interested to see how that might sort of work. And maybe another goal-scoring winger, I think.
And possibly there are others. Solanke, can he play? He's going to struggle to play with both competitions because he's had injuries in the past. Richarlison, is he going to be back to the player he was? He struggled under Ange because he can't do the running that Ange wanted.
If Thomas Frank manages to get performances out of Richarlison, then he really is a legend that everyone says. That really will be the sign of the success for Thomas Frank. Loads of more still to come for Tottenham, you would expect, in the coming weeks. Easiest link of all this entire series,
Alison.
Your
whole life, probably.
Brentford.
Yeah.
Thomas Frank, Brentford. Alison, we're going to come to you in just a second, but Gary, keeping the formula. We'll go through the players they've signed. Michael Coyote, Romel Donovan, Kelleher from Liverpool has come in, and Tony Milambo and Jordan Henderson on a free transfer. Fascinating, that one. Out go Ben Mee, Ben Winterbottom, Mark Flecken, Christian Norgard, of course, who we've mentioned, Josh De Silva, Brian Bumo to Manchester United, and Jim Soo Kim on loan to Kaiserslautern. They need to make some signings, especially if, as you said a minute ago, Jon Visser is off as well.
Well, so they signed one forward, Milabo from Feyenoord.
Yeah.
But yeah, they do. If and my understanding is that Visser will go once they've found a replacement. Obviously, I don't know how many goals that Visser and Mboma would have got last year, but it must be a very sizable proportion.
I think it was like 19
proportion-wise, yeah. So the proportion-wise must be very, in terms of they're definitely going to need to cover that. But like Alison said, they offered Cochrane a job and they've gone inside. So they obviously are very confident in Keith doing the job. And
Keith Andrews,
and they're obviously like Brighton as well, and they have their players they want to go to, very unseen players. So,
but is this not more actually what we were just talking about? What could happen to Crystal Palace has happened to Brentford. They've lost their best manager ever in the history of the club, absolute legend. Everyone loves him. Norgard and Bumo, maybe, and Visser set to leave as well. I mean, this is a disastrous summer for Brentford, isn't it?
But they would have been aware of this 3-4 months ago. Visser's contract's running down, and obviously there was speculation in January, and Bomo's probably been wanting to go for a period of time. I think they've probably been banking on this. Perhaps maybe the Thomas Frank one was a bit more not certain if he was going.
Thomas Frank's been tapped up at the minutes since he beat Arsenal in the opening day of their Premier League campaign when they first got promoted. Basically, people saw that he was special. But what they weren't probably prepared for was everyone going en masse to Spurs. They probably thought they could
the backroom staff
keep a few of the backroom staff in situ, which is what worries me the most about it. Actually, is I don't think Keith Andrew was first, second, or third choice. Probably. I mean, I hope I'm wrong, but
he seems very confident though.
Well.
From reading his press conference that Gregor went to and watching all the videos that come out these days on social media that they do from pre-season training camps about things like that.
Yeah.
But Alison, it's a huge job, isn't it?
No, it's massive. It's massive. And everything, most of what you love about Brentford is gone, really, apart from the ownership and the philosophy. So you hope that they are as clever as they are at Brighton. They're always lumped together, aren't they, Brentford and Brighton, as having owners that work the system and are always 10 steps ahead of anybody else because they're crunching their numbers. They expect to have to sell. They expect their managers to be poached. They're always, in terms of chess, they're looking 4 or 5 moves ahead, not the next move. And so I really hope for Brentford's sake that's what's happened here. But it just feels like there'll be a huge sort of loss of personality to the place. And you kind of think what they've got left. There were glimpses last season that Kevin Schade, who's very fast, by the way, couldn't finish, started to find shooting boots. Well, if he has a great season, then you'll soon stop talking about Brian and Bumo, maybe. But it's a lot to take on at once. So if they do not flirt with relegation after a few months, if they're not in that sort of pack, I think that they'll be on track to be the story of the season if they manage to somehow absorb these losses.
That is the slight framing that you come to, and this is me being mischievous sports editor trying to find narratives all the time. But the last 2 seasons, who can the teams coming up look at and think we might take their place? Are Brentford not the obvious one of the candidates that they start going? They've lost all these people and the manager.
You would.
Leeds, Sunderland, start going.
But you would. And so it's what it's about is just how well run is that club. And this is the season we find out. We already know they're very well run, but this is the absolute proof of how well run they are if they absorb all these high profile departures.
I think they'll be okay.
You think they'll be fine?
Yeah, there's one question mark that's sort of like a wild card. Is Igor Thiago, the striker that they signed, but we haven't seen very much of at all.
He was signed to replace Ivan Toney, right?
Yeah. But he was injured, so I think he played a few minutes last season, but that was about it. It's going to be hard for him to miss a year, essentially, and then hit the ground running. But maybe he will. And I think there's he was a player that I remember doing a little bit of scouting on when he moved on. So his underlying numbers are all right. I think he was in the Belgian league first. If he works out, then that will assuage many of the questions that we have about Brentford. But I wouldn't bet the house on him. I wouldn't bet much on him. But as in, it's a wild card that can be that should be considered.
Might be surprising.
And the back line's still intact, isn't it?
It's still got damn.
No, I thought there would have been. I thought maybe Spurs might have looked at Collins from Brentford. I thought had a really good season, but the back line's still intact. So I don't know much about Keith Andrews apart from seeing him once against Bournemouth away, where he changed that game and Bournemouth were winning, and he was a set piece coach, and he was on the sideline clearly very vocal, and he changed it with two goals from set pieces. Right. So obviously he's not got that role anymore, and that wasn't his background. He became the set piece. He wasn't like a standard set piece coach for 10 years. So I think he's a very confident guy. He was Ireland number 2 for a period of time. He had some clashes when he was Ireland number 2. So I think. And also the flip side is that most of us would say, well, when are we going to give younger people, other people at the club a chance? To get, it's a fair play to Brentford. They've gone for it. If it doesn't work out, they'll
have to make a quick change. We'll see what the future holds for Brentford. Another fascinating narrative to play out this season. We finish with a look at West Ham. Speaking of fascinating, I honestly have no idea what's going to come out for West Ham this season. Graham Potter in charge, obviously taking over halfway through last season. Gary running through some of the signings. Jean-Claire Todibo, El Hadji, Malik Diouf and Kyle Walker-Peters have come in. Kudus, of course, who we've mentioned. Kufal, Ings, Fabianski, Cresswell, Zuma and Antonio not there. That's quite a number of established, experienced players no longer in the squad, and not many brought in. They're going to be wanting to do more business, aren't they?
Absolutely. I mean, Kudus went to give them money to do more business. Their big problem last year is they just didn't have any legs. They were like a really ponderous, slow team, and I think Potter needs to get some midfield energy, and they've still not signed that. The back, he's going to move to a wing-back system, and I think the fact that they're getting Agard back, who was on loan, he's coming back and he's staying. Todibo, who wasn't really very happy last season, seems to be staying, and Kilman will be the third. So I think, and they've got Wan-Bissaka, who had a pretty good season, an underrated season. So I think, and they've signed a very good interest in left back in Diouf, who Palace wanted in January, and he created the goal in the friendly yesterday, and actually he looks quite good. So I think the back line might be quite good, but their problem is going to be in midfield. They still don't really have any energy there. Interesting what happened to Fulcrook, because he looked so slow and ponderous last season. But so have they worked on him in pre-season? Is he going to be a lot fun? Are they going to play to his strengths, which they didn't do before? But, Bowen's going to be Bowen, and then can they replace? And they got Paquetá. Obviously, that's obviously going to be a big plus. The fact that
will they keep him though?
I think they will, because I think the City ship unfortunately has sailed from his perspective, and I don't think anyone's going to pay 60 million. And I think who's going to pay it in the Premier League? I don't know. He's been linked with the two teams supposedly with Newcastle and City. Well, City ship has sailed, and I don't really see how Newcastle need him. So I think he's probably going to have to stay there, probably have a good season, go to the World Cup. If he does well with Brazil, maybe he gets his move next summer. And it's very sad on the boy that he didn't get the big move he wanted, but he's got a chance, in a way, he's got a chance now to repay West Ham and say, thanks very much, you stood by me, I'll now deliver. And he's obviously a really good player. You know, Guardiola loved him. He holds the ball, he's aggressive. Moyes always thought he was, signing a Brazilian, you think you might actually sign a guy who's a bit of a fancy down, but actually when you watch Paquetá, the guy's really aggressive. He's very, very determined.
Definitely a huge boost for them having him. But I mean, this is also couched this season, I think, in the fact that Tottenham and Manchester United stole the headlines with disastrous seasons, but West Ham's was a shocker. Yeah. Really. 43 points, finished in 14th. They changed manager, made a load of signings. This was the new, a new version of West Ham after, thanks very much, David Moyes. Thanks for that Conference League trophy, those special memories. But we're really kicking on now into this, whatever this version of West Ham was, which turned out to be completely rubbish.
They were the most boring team.
There's a lot of pressure on Graham Potter here, isn't there, Alison?
Yeah, because he was off the hook a lot because he had that I haven't worked with them in pre-season card that he played. So he's in the same boat as Ruben Amorim now, is that he's had the whole of the summer, and he was hired on the basis of giving the fans something more entertaining to watch. This is a big deal. The whole relationship between the club and the fan base has been toxic for quite a long time, with assuaged by being back in Europe. But even so, it's not been considered attractive enough. So they bring in Potter, gets even more dull. Honestly, some of the most wasted moments of my life. I've been watching West Ham last season.
Did it look dull because the players didn't understand, or did it look like a manager in transition? Because Potter has a certain way of playing that we all hear about.
It was join the dots, but with the pen running out. No one knew what they were supposed to be doing. It was very disconnected. And when you are disconnected and the message isn't getting across, you get very defensive football and scared football. There was no free-flowing. Occasionally there'd be a move, maybe because Jared Bowen's a great player. But otherwise,
I mean, Jared Bowen literally carried them, didn't he?
Exactly. And sometimes you'd think, that looked like a lovely move from West Ham, but it was really just Bowen having the ability to rise above the stodge, really. So he's had all summer, Potter, and I think he'll be under pressure very quickly if they play anywhere near like they played at the end of last season, because it was unacceptable for someone who'd replaced someone who'd won new silverware.
And so we're saying with what Gary was talking about with this squad, then that. Unless they make a couple of big signings.
They need signings. They need energy. Yeah, they definitely.
How many are we talking here, Gary? Like what? 2 in midfield and an attacker,
probably 2 in midfield. Yeah, I mean they signed Callum Wilson as another attacker, but probably 2 in midfield. Yeah.
Interesting.
I think Alice is right, but I think Potter rightly or wrongly looked at it and he thought we shipped loads of goals under Moyes and Lopetegui. I need to change that. And he's kind of almost trying to make him really defensive and boring. And I think he's sorted kind of that out rightly. But going forward, they were pretty poor.
If they don't get those players, then I teased this idea with Brentford. Are they another club that
absolutely,
Burnley, Sunderland are looking at going? We can take points. Hamza, you don't agree? Think they'll be all right again?
They might think that they could, but as in at the end of the day, they've got Paquetá and Bowen, who are just better players than the other teams have. I don't mean that in a disrespectful way, but when you've got that
not at all. I mean, Jared Bowen and Paquetá are superb players, but
yeah, they can probably carry you through the tough times. I think one of the issues they have here is that, and Gary's mentioned this, they're just not fast and strong enough. And over the past few years in particular, we've seen how the Premier League has become even more physical. It already led the way in terms of sort of high-speed running, sprints, most intense, sort of all those figures, right? But in order to compete, you probably need a squad that has those qualities. And when you look at the front three, you go, whoa, when they had Kudus, you go, whoa, they've got all those qualities. And now you look at the team and you go, even with the few additions that they made, it still doesn't have that punch that they need to be able to be effective if they're counter-attacking or to robustly defend against teams that dominate possession. Or they can sort of try and play away where they've got loads of possession, but even then they don't have the snap that they need to get the ball forward.
And I think you made a good point about Potter, because he sat on the sidelines for nearly 2 years post Chelsea.
Yeah, waiting for this job, waiting for the right
opportunity.
Myself, my reputation.
Absolutely. Yeah. He turned down opportunities at Leicester and at other clubs. I'm not sure West Ham was the right one for him to go, but he did it. He did it, and now actually he needs to do it. He's got, I think, 1 year and they've got an option next summer after that. So actually for him, it's an important year for his own career. He turned down Ajax as well. Remember, he was linked to Ajax. So he's kind of, for him himself, he needs to show, well, this is the Graham Potter that I was at Swansea and Ostersund's and at Start and Brighton. So for him, it's an important year.
Big pressure on Graham Potter. We'll leave it there. Alison Rudd,
No Liverpool. No Liverpool mention.
Right,
no
Gary,
Liverpool
to come with Paul Joyce in a few shows' time. But Gary Jacob, Hamza Cleveland and Alison Rudd, thank you very much for joining me. Thank you too for listening. As I said, if you've got questions you want to ask the team or points you want to raise, get in touch with me, tom.clark@thetimes.co.uk. Me and Gregor will be back with a championship preview on Wednesday, and then this series will continue with 3 more shows as Pete Rutzler, Paul Joyce, Martin Hardy and Charlotte Dunker discuss the rest of the clubs in the Premier League. We'll see you then.
Get the new Samsung Galaxy Z Fold 7 and save £713.
What's it like?
It's ultra sleek and ultra slim.
What about the camera?
It's 200 megapixel.
200 megapixel.
Amazing.
And with unlimited data, all on the UK's best network. It's no wonder tech lovers choose EE.
Introductory offer ends 14th of August. Savings across contract. Eligibility, credit check and terms apply. Credit by EE Limited. Verify at ee.co.uk/claims.